Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. Mike Johnson coming up from the rink, Leafs Dallas tonight on TSN. We'll tee that up with Johnny. We'll get his take on the John Klingberg news. John Klingberg is looking to make a return.
John Klingberg.
He's looking to make a return, and according to Dregs, it's Toronto, Edmonton, and Ottawa that are looking at him. I don't know. Personally, I would think maybe let that ship sail and just say thanks for everything. We gave it a shot. Yeah. But their power play is abysmal right now.
That would be the only reason. And remember I said this is Exhibit A of the league being watered down and being desperate for talent. If you are even sniffing around John Klingberg, like, what are we talking about here?
There's a guy that pulled a stunt too. Apparently Dallas was willing to pay him big money. Remember his last couple of years?
Yeah.
And he said, nope, I want more. I'm going to free agency. And then Anaheim gave him a 1-year deal. Then he came to Toronto. Like, reports are out there indicating he had a long-term deal at big money on the table.
He had a home run sitting right in front of him. And he was like, that's the thing. It's just like, when you get like that big chunk, and if it's like $1 million off per, like, you're an idiot not to sign it. If you say, no, I'm going to hold out and either risk injury or your play declines and you're sitting there with nothing, it's bad advice, man. Like, it's bad advice. That $1 million, and everybody wants to maximize on their value, but that money, the difference is not going to make your life any different or any better for that fact.
Well, especially if you're comfortable there. Like, if you know who you are,
you've had
what
success.
You do, that's your room, like there's just so much that goes into just signing it. And
what about guys that play with great players and they're in a great situation? Like, I don't know what the Rantanen deal is, but imagine trying to squeeze some more money out of somebody else and going to play with some stiff on a different team.
Well,
like,
that's what doesn't come up enough.
Not playing with Nathan MacKinnon?
Exactly.
Are you serious?
That's what doesn't come up enough. Like, sure, you can leave.
Yeah, you can leave, bud.
But guess where you're going to be playing? Like, you're going to, where are you going? Like, maybe you want to go to California or something like that. I understand it. It's compelling. But go down there, go to Anaheim, see what happens. Who are you playing with? What do you do? Like, I do wonder if Bedard and or Macklin Celebrini get to a point where they can sell someone.
All you got to do is ask a guy like Alex Killorn. He's one of my favorites in the league. He was a clutch guy for Tampa with all those cups. Signed in Anaheim. Call him up and say, how's it going in Anaheim, man?
Mm-hmm. He's like, I live in Anaheim. It's cool.
Wow.
Well, maybe that's
the thing. There are some guys.
He got a couple cups, and he's like, I'll go to Anaheim for 5 years. I want to maximize.
Yeah.
That's a completely different story than where Rantanen is.
Funny how that's flipped. That used to be Florida, right? And it used to be Anaheim and San Jose and L.A. It was like, you're
now
going there to win.
Florida to win.
Now you go to, like, Florida doesn't want you anymore. They're too good, right? They only want you if you're prepared to win. You got to take a discount to go there. Like, historically, that's what the Panthers were forever. Guys are like, I just kind of want to live in Florida and I'll take the money, and I know I'm not going to win.
And when you take more, the expectations go up. Like, look at Pettersson. Like, literally since he signed the contract, hasn't this kind of coincided?
Yeah, I mean, his play has really fallen off ever since.
Even
there was a point where he was a top player,
right? Like,
you thought of him as a top 10 player. I don't know what his highest finish is in the top 50 list, but
it would have been, I would guess,
12 or 15,
like below 20 for sure.
Well, and can I just bring like a local example? We don't have to talk about the Leafs, but like, if you're thinking like Marner's next contract, if he like came out and said, you know what, I'm going to take a little less, think of like how great that would go over in the market. Like,
it would have been a grand slam for him if he signed on July 1st that summer for just 10.5. Yeah. Even that, how crazy that, and maybe that wasn't available at that point.
I know, but guys, I will say this. When you're in a locker room and your contributions are as equal or sometimes greater, and you're like, your first thing is, it's like, why wouldn't I get the same as that guy? Like, it's easy to say, you'd be loved but you're in the locker room and you're like, for what I do, why aren't I getting the same?
But it would be someone saying what you just said to us, where it's like, like in the scheme of things, it's like this many million, which is not nothing. But think of like, your life is not going to change, right?
No, big picture, it ain't going to get any better.
Right.
If anything, it actually would have changed. It would have been a lot better for you if you just sign quicker for a little bit less
last time.
Yeah. I would suggest the same thing applies here.
But anyway.
You know, we're not, we haven't really been doing the Marner contract thing because there's nothing new. There's nothing really to say that hasn't already been said. But I would suggest you're playing with fire a little bit. Like the longer it goes without signing, presuming the Leafs want to work out a deal right now, and we all know what the parameters are going to be. It's a ton of money, ton of years, full no move, full no trade. Like that's just what the deal's going to be. If I'm Mitch or if I'm in his camp, I'm like, just sign it now while you're red hot. You're leading the team in points. The team's first in the division. Everything's great. Sign it now. Sign 8 years, $12 million, and get it over with. And you're a hero. And everyone, you know, sure, some people are going to push back and blah blah blah. But if you risk going into the playoffs and you play poorly and you lose in the first round, and then it comes out you want more than Austin,
he's still going to get paid. Like it's not going to matter. Maybe it's not.
They might. Well, he's going to get. Of course, if he becomes a free agent, someone's going to give him a monster deal.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, this isn't a Klingberg
if you were
scenario
the Leafs,
like that.
Would you sign that contract today?
8 years, $12 million.
Yeah,
per?
they just call you up and they say, "We'll do it right now."
I would be very hesitant to do it, like before seeing what's going to happen in the
Gotta
playoffs.
see it, yeah.
Like to do it again, the idea of just committing and then maybe they still don't have it and they don't win.
Well, what about this, Jonas? If he's not good in the playoffs, would you be willing to say we're moving away from the player?
That's a great question. You'd have to
flip that.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, don't you? Like, isn't the whole point?
Well, what you have to ask yourself is,
look at what we just talked about with Sam Darnold. Not the same thing, but we were like, in the big games, he wasn't good. What are we gonna do? Like, they're not gonna bring him back.
I know. And after this many years, like, do you say there's still the OV opportunity where it's like he could be the guy?
That's what's
the
conflicting,
magical,
for sure.
Well, but the thing is about the OV opportunity is that was one guy who stuck around for it all.
Yeah. Well,
not
Backstrom.
Three of them. Backstrom wasn't there originally, though. He was a bit young. You're right. Like, Backstrom eventually became his guy, but not three of them, not four of them. I don't know. All right, Mike Johnson will join us here in a moment. Johnny's coming up. Johnny's having some technical issues, evidently. You know what's interesting? I just got this email. So the odds for winning the Hart Trophy have been adjusted on FanDuel.
Ooh, I don't know who. Oh,
you want to guess who is number? There are actually three guys who are tied at plus 360. I would guess this is the first time that's ever happened where you have three guys who are all tied. Guess the three guys.
McDavid, Draisaitl, and MacKinnon.
Okay, that's your three. Jonas?
Draisaitl, Makar, MacKinnon. What about Kaprizov?
The answer is Draisaitl, MacKinnon, and Hellebuyck.
Oh, wow.
Hellebuyck is now tied atop the odds list on FanDuel for winning the Hart.
Dude, I'm glad that a goalie is up there.
Listen, the guy's numbers are
and it's a
phenomenal.
Testament to my eyes. I could see the email through the glass, and I still couldn't even read the names. I tried.
You couldn't tell who?
No,
who
I
was
thought
on top?
that said MacKinnon and Draisaitl.
But you were trying to cheat. You got it wrong. Anyway.
I tried to cheat, and I still got it wrong.
Didn't that burn you when you used to? I don't know if you guys used to try to cheat every once in a while in like class, and you'd be like, "Man, that guy got it wrong." You'd be like, "What an idiot!" You're like, "Well, why didn't you do it yourself?"
Dude, I would beg the guy next to me to do the old flip up.
It's so pathetic looking back on it.
It really is.
It's like, so pathetic. All you had to do is a little bit of work.
Cheating on a stupid grade 10 math.
It's so pathetic.
Yeah.
If you did 10 minutes of prep, you would have been fine. Dude, please. And the worst thing is, like, you'd walk away and be like, actually, I have no idea if that guy has any idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, the guy would be like, sure, I'll do it. But he's like, do you think I know what I'm doing? The amazing thing is when sometimes would come to you and be like, do you think you can help me out? You're like, sure, I'll give it a shot. You're cheating off me? Do you know how stupid you must be? If you're coming to me for help, you must really be desperate.
Dude, one time I wrote down all the answers to a French test on my hand, and there was a question, like just a question and answer segment after the test, and I put my hand up with and had to explain how I didn't use it. I was like, it was just a reference, like I was studying, and I did not use it during the test. I don't know. I don't know if she bought that one or not.
Probably not. We don't condone any of that behavior. We just want that on the record.
That's right.
We don't condone any of that behavior. But yeah, Hellebuyck, MacKinnon, Draisaitl, all plus 360. McDavid plus 420. Kaprizov plus 500. Kucherov plus 1100, which is wild because.
Dude, where's McDavid?
McDavid's fourth. He's at plus 420. Okay. But Draisaitl has been more effective in terms of.
Dude, he's been
everything across the board. He leads in every statistical category that matters. Goals, go-ahead goals, goals to start a game, like overtime winners. Everything across the board is Draisaitl. So I would personally put Draisaitl 1. I think I'd go Hellebuyck 2, MacKinnon 3. Kaprizov had the injury, which really burned him.
Why can a defenseman never win?
Well, it's happened before.
Who's more valuable than Makar?
I would argue Quinn Hughes is probably equally as valuable because maybe more so because McKinnon's on Makar's team and Rantanen's like second in points in the league. Who is Quinn Hughes relying on right now?
Yeah, but how many points even does Makar have? He's right up there, too.
I'm not downplaying the greatness of Makar. What I'm saying is he has more help.
Werenski's another guy who's been dynamite.
Phenomenal for them. Leading them in points, and they're in the playoff spot. But when you think of Hughes, like Patterson's been kind of crushing him at times. JT Miller, you know what's been going on there. Not good. All right, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline, here's our TSN hockey analyst, Mike Johnson. Johnny, what do you make of that? Hellebuyck, MacKinnon, Draisaitl on FanDuel tied at plus 360 to win the Hart.
I like it. I like the fact that they're throwing Hellebuyck and recognizing how special his year is. I like the fact that they're not ignoring how good Draisaitl has been in many ways with the goal differential, more deserving to win it right now than McDavid, even though they're the same team. And you think about who the Oilers, like McDavid plays with, Hyman and Nuge a lot. Draisaitl's played like Hud Colson and Arvidsson and still racking up the goals. So, yeah, I like that. You can bring in 5-on-5 goals versus McKinnon's got a boatload of empty net points. And just food for thought, whoever said Quinn Hughes. So they could do these, like, the fancy equation, O's favorites, but the wins above replacement for hockey, they're not that precise, but it's just one way to look at it. And you're right, like Rantanen's a top 7 guy, and McDavid's a top 7 guy. Hellebuyck's a guy on his island, but he also has Scheifele, Morrissey, and Connor all in the top 25. The next best Canuck is Connor Garland. Wow. in the one I just looked at. He's like down in like 80, 90. So to suggest Quinn Hughes is as important as any of them, that's not that tough an argument to make.
Do you think Hellebuyck sticks it out amongst those guys, which I think he should, and I know another guy that's on this show quite often who thinks he should, or is it just we're recognizing this guy and he'll fade off after a couple months?
I mean, if Hellebuyck ends up being leader in wins, shutout, goals against save percentage, and the Jets are in first or something close to it, I don't know how you don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can't give him the MVP. I know, and I'm well on record as being goaltenders need a particularly great year beyond just sort of measuring up against the positional players because of the nature of their position. They need Carey Price. They need Dominic Hasek or maybe even Jose. I'm not sure he deserved to win it when he did. But, you need to do something out of the norm. Feels like Hellebuyck might be doing that this year if he's able to end the year sort of at the top of every major statistical category, including team success. I don't know how you don't give it to him.
Johnny, I'm curious your answer to this, and I know you like to dive into the analytics, and as a professional analyst and broadcaster, I'd love to know the answer. What is your analytical take on the Leafs power play? Like, analytically, what are you seeing, and how would you fix it?
So it's interesting, I've spent literally 3 days sort of perusing all kinds of different numbers about this and trying to understand what is going on there. So the first thought I had, was, well, maybe they're not spending as much time in the offensive zone, right? Like they're just not getting in there and not getting secondary pucks compared to last year. That was a negative. They are to the percentage point, the exact same, 0.63% of every power play they spend in the offensive zone. Same as last year. So exactly the same. Then I looked, it's literally I did this last 3 days. I'm like, well, maybe guys are shooting pucks disproportionately, right? Like maybe Matthews is not shooting it as much, and maybe Marner shooting it more. Like maybe there's something there. And other than Nylander being down a little bit, everyone else is Well, a lot, a little. I mean, it depends.
That
what
was
you want
Jonas,
to say.
by the way. That was
yeah,
Jonas.
I know. He's gone from like 27% of all the shots they took together.
Yeah, I see.
Versus like he's down to like 21. So it's significant. That's like a 25% drop, 30% drop, but it's not. It wasn't enough to send off any alarm bells to me. So I'm kind of like, was that it? Is that it? They're not that far off. I mean, they're not 30% anymore, but they're not that far off. I think what it is, though, is that they are a little bit stagnant up top. And, I don't think shooting blindly is the answer, because I don't necessarily buy into, get a guy who can hammer the puck from the top and whether it's Morgan Riley, Mitch
What is
Marner,
shooting blindly, though? Explain that to me.
Getting the umbrella, right? So, the 1-3-1. So you have Marner up the top. You have Matthews on one side, Nylander on the other, and you got Tavares and Knies in front of the net, right? So the umbrella is Matthews, Marner, Nylander. And if you just pass the puck from the top of the circle, the side of the umbrella, to Marner or Nylander, whoever, and just take it a one-timer or a wrister from up there, I don't think those are sort of high percentage chances. Those are not really going to work with the regularity that I think they would want or that you would want. So that's probably not it. I still think what has gone down the most of them is their ability to access the slots. So pucks into the slot, passes into the slot, skating it into the slot. And why that is, that's a little bit more nuanced, but I think that's got to be the focus. That's sort of like, how do we get pucks and bodies into that area and work as a five-man unit all together? That is sort of what their focus is right now, but even looking at it, and as a quasi, air quote, professional analyst, there was no sort of really obvious, this is what they have to do differently, because they're just sort of fractionally off almost across the board relative to last year.
Mike, what I found was their attempts are way down from last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask you, if you were Marc Savard, would you split up the personnel? Do you like the 5 forward thing? Do you think it's actually viable?
Not long
So
term.
again, I looked at the 5 forward thing, and one of the real concerns as of late is, they're not good defensively. The expected goals against, O's favorite term, with Morgan Riley and 4 forwards is almost the exact same as 5 forwards. So the argument that it's not good defensively, I don't buy that. Now, you could say, would it be better served with a different mix of forwards out there? We can have that conversation. But the idea that it's a defensive decision to make them more reliable, I don't buy that. The numbers sort of don't back that up. So I don't know. I don't think you have to go away from it. I think some of it might be Austin Matthews and his health. He's not as dynamic. He doesn't shoot it as hard. He hasn't shoot it as accurately. And they're not miles away. They're 20, what are they right now, Jonas? 20.3% or something on the year.
Mm-hmm.
And, you'd love for them to get to about 25. So they're not that far off. They're 4 or 5 goals, which, quite frankly, if you looked at the goals that Austin Matthews was scoring just on similar caliber plays, he was just doing it last year because I think he could shoot the puck a little better last year than this year. So that's also part of the conversation in my mind. So, yeah, maybe shot attempts, but I don't want empty calorie shots if I'm Marc Savard or the Leafs or the players. I want quality shots, not just shooting mentality, sure, but make sure that they're quality, not just go for quantity.
With Mike Johnson, Leaf Stars tonight, Dallas has had a real issue scoring goals this year, yet they're winning a lot of games recently. I believe the game down in Dallas was 3-1 Leafs. I want to say that a few weeks ago.
That was a great goaltending performance. Was it Stolarz that night?
Well, I think Wall played really well.
Stole it.
Yeah, Ottinger and Wall. Are you anticipating the same style tonight? You think 2-1 game, 3-2 game tonight?
Yeah, probably. I mean, Wall's numbers, how about coming off 3 or more days rest? He's 10-0 with a 940 this year. Wow. So really, really, really good. Ottinger also very good. The underlying numbers for Dallas are really strong. They're certainly missing Tyler Seguin. They're missing Mason Marchment. They both haven't played in a while. Tyler's out for a long time. So some of their depth is not available. Wyatt Johnston and Jason Robertson, probably their 2 best players, right? Those are 2 best forwards. And they both got off to slow starts. I think the prospect of trying to make the Four Nations was hanging over their head, and they got off to sort of a pressure-filled slow start. They're playing better as of late. But, yeah, I mean, Dallas checks hard. Underlying numbers really good. Goaltending really good. Defensive numbers really good. With Toronto having a break and not loving how they played last game, I'm expecting 3-2 empty net or 4-2. That kind of game. should be really tight.
All right.
Johnny, when do you figure out, like, Wall played in Carolina and then didn't play on Saturday night at home, which I found kind of weird. Like, he's a young guy. When are you really going to find out if one of these guys can play for 2 months straight, which is a playoff run?
When they try to do it, in 2 months. Like, I don't think we'll know.
So it's a wait-and-see approach.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I think Stolarz is sort of creeping back on the ice now, although he probably won't be back till maybe after the Four Nations thing. But they'll share time down the stretch. And I think, whether it's the stat I just gave about 3+ days rest or the fact that neither one of them played a whole bunch in a year, I don't think they're going to push it to find out. Can we ride Wall down the stretch? Can we ride Stolarz down the stretch? I think they'll just share, and maybe whoever's playing better sort of gets the starts of the playoffs until he doesn't play better than the other guy. It would not surprise me at all, especially if the Leafs win one round or more, that both goalies play in the playoffs, which, sometimes that can be dicey, but I don't think we're going to find out. I don't think they will push either guy, if they're both healthy, to play more than 55% of the games. I just think it'll be mostly just an even split the rest of the year.
Do you think you can actually do the Boston thing where Wayman starts, Allmark starts? Because I'm just looking back at the schedule from last year. It's like every other day, April 20, April 22, April 24. Mm-hmm. Like, if Wall is your guy, like, he's playing every other game, or you're just going to rotate. But we've never actually seen that work that I can think of.
No, now, because it hasn't worked doesn't mean it can't work, right? Sure, Jonas, you know this. Like, the goalies don't do it because they have one really good goalie and they don't have a second one that they even want to bother with. There hasn't been many situations other than Boston who tried it, and it didn't really work for them the way that they anticipated. So it's not ideal because I think sort of everyone likes the continuity and the normalcy of that guy's our guy, and he goes every night no matter what. But I think in this situation, when they both play relatively the same and the numbers are the same, I think this might be a year where the Leafs will try to do something that maybe hasn't been done very many times and sort of utilize both goalies regularly, not like when Grubauer started and then Braden Holtby took over. Like just sort of every now and then the other guy will play over the course of sort of regular playoff series.
Oof.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
I know. That's exactly
I don't like it.
The purist, the historian, the hockey dude in us. Like, oof. I mean, I love when Cujo was in net because I didn't care about anybody else. Like, he was gonna play, no matter how bad or good he was. It did not matter. We knew Cujo's going in there, and he's got it. He always does. It was never like, oh well, maybe he'll get in there for us.
Right.
Like
nobody else.
There is a comfort there, and that's also a comfort from familiarity. Which, if the Bruins had gone and won the Cup doing it 3 years ago, we probably wouldn't have this conversation. But they didn't, so we have to.
Yeah, and I anticipate we likely will for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Wall versus Ottinger, Stars Leafs tonight on TSN 4. Have a good call, Johnny. We'll do it later in the week.
All right, fellas. Have a good night.
Mike Johnson joining us here in the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, and get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com. All right, Nick Taylor later in the hour. And confirm it tonight after dark. Jesse Palmer coming up. Oh, you've got a panel tonight. Quiz night, I'm assuming. Has to be, right?
Can't wait.
Has to be.
You guys have fun.
And Thursday, coming in hot.
So you know the routine. You get here at 2:30, and at 3:25, you go get the faxes.
Yes.
And you come back.
I will have those ready for you. Lastly, before you leave us, Tigers playing in that TGL thing tonight. Each player has to have a walkout song. What do you think Tiger Woods is going to choose?
Simply the Best, Tina Turner.
That actually would be that'd be a great song to choose.
Yes.
What would you guys choose?
I don't know.
They should do that for the panel for you.
You guys should have a little walkout for the panel. That'd be a great idea. But yeah, a lot of people are wondering, like, Tiger, this could humanize Tiger. He's got to pick a song, man. What's your favorite song? What song represents you, Tiger Woods, tonight?
People will be tuned in watching that.
We'll see what comes of it. All right. Catch you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. There's the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill. Nick Taylor coming up after a very, very successful weekend at the Sony Open. He's in action this week at the Amex. So we'll catch up with Nick Taylor, Jesse Palmer still to come, Pierre LeBrun as well. Leaf Stars tonight Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Jesse Palmer in about a half an hour. We'll start looking ahead to the divisional round. Bills-Ravens, see what he thinks about that. Sam Darnold, what's his future? Does he return to Minnesota? Is it even possible that they bring him back? I think the door's got to be open to an extent.
For sure.
Like you have to at least contemplate that if you're Minnesota.
McCarthy's coming off a pretty serious injury, isn't he?
Yeah, huge.
Was it a torn ACL? Or was it a
it was either Achilles or ACL. It was something to do with his legs.
Serious. Never played in the league. What are you doing if is he your day one starter? I don't know.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty big gamble.
Win 14 games, and he was very good for most
Listen, man, if you're a Vikings fan, 16 days ago, you were staring at the 1 seed in home field through the playoffs. You go into Detroit, you get spanked. And right when I realized, I'm like, they got to go to L.A., that's a terrible matchup. I thought it would be a better game than it was last night. I thought Minnesota would play better. I thought they'd be more prepared. But it was a scenario where you're talking Matt Stafford, Sean McVay. That Rams defense has got increasingly better as the year has gone on. Just a bad matchup. And you lose. They lost 4 games all year.
Yep.
Week 7 and Week 8 were losses to Detroit and then losses to the Rams. And then Week 18 lost to Detroit, wild card lost to the Rams.
Can I ask you, though, what did you think of that Stafford fumble, which wasn't a fumble?
I thought it was a blatant fumble.
I did, too, and that's where the game really seemed to turn.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the explanation that he's throwing it, but it's
was it Kyron Williams, I think, that was technically there?
No, it was Nakua.
Oh, was it Akua that was there? Okay, so someone was, they were in, he could see their legs, but there's no way he knew who it was, and it was blatantly a defense tactic, but at the same point, I thought he had already committed to kind of the sack, which to me should have been a fumble.
Me too.
And you're right, that's 10-10 at that point. Yeah. And then who knows what happens the rest of the way. Like the way the Rams defended them, the way their offensive line in Minnesota was just getting shredded, and the way Darnold was playing would suggest to me, even if it was 10-10, the Rams were going to win that game. But you never really know. And I do think the protection was bad, the scheming was bad. But I found the way that Darnold started the second half very concerning. He threw a screen on the first pass of the second half. Do you remember that?
Jefferson, he missed him?
He was tiptoeing around, and he underthrew him before he could even turn around. It was awful. Yeah. Like, that was a sign to me that this guy's not ready. Like, he did not make an adjustment in the half, and he is in big, big trouble.
Well, and even, their pace. It's you guys are down 20.
They kept running the ball late in the game.
What are you doing?
Yeah, it was like they mailed it in, man. It was basically a business decision. They said we had a great year and we're done. And now the Rams go to Philly, and we'll see what Jesse Palmer has to say about that. But for me, I think Detroit wins and possibly big. I think Kansas City wins, possibly big. I think if you're an NFL fan, you're just hoping the Rams and the Eagles are a great game and the Bills and the Ravens meet the hype. That's what I'm waiting for Sunday, basically, is what I'm saying.
Are you going to jump on the Rams bandwagon a bit? Because I wasn't so, I've never been super impressed with Philly. Even that game the other day.
I think the Rams can beat them.
I do, too.
Yeah. I do. I think it's going to be a tough challenge. That Eagles defense is playing really, really well right now. But I trust Matt Stafford more than I trust Jalen Hurts, and I trust Sean McVay more than I trust Nick Sirianni. So I think it'll be a good game. But it's all about the nightcap on Sunday. The whole weekend is just building towards Buffalo, Baltimore.
We still don't know who won the MVP. And it's it's going to be one of those two guys. And it's who is it? And imagine one wins and then the other wins the MVP. And then we're I was the wrong decision.
I think that's very likely. Yeah. I think Lamar is going to win the MVP now. Based on the All-Pro vote last week. I'm sure you saw that. Historically, whoever is the first-team All-Pro quarterback, that's the guy that wins the MVP. It's all the same voters.
Right.
50 guys to vote for both. 30 of them voted him for All-Pro. That would suggest to me that 30 of them also voted for him to be the MVP, so he's going to win it. But as of now on Tuesday, I lean Bills, man. I think Josh Allen and that Buffalo Bills team, I think they're going to win this game. And then I think they're going to win against Kansas City. And I'm leaning Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl. And
that would be fun.
It would be so chaotic, so incredible. I don't know who'd be favored in a game like that.
Detroit?
I think it'd be
Probably.
close, man. I could see it being a pick'em. A
Detroit,
pick'em
1.5?
Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be amazing? A pick'em Super Bowl. That's what it probably should be.
With two franchises that have just been punched in the
Never
face.
won anything.
Yeah.
Never won anything.
Who would be the more deserving franchise, like in terms of fan base?
Detroit.
Just because Buffalo at least went to those Super
Buffalo's,
Bowls?
they went to 4 Super Bowls. They've been a playoff team for 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, they've had playoff games that have gone against. Like, listen, both fan bases can put their hands up and say we've been through it here. The Vikings can do the same thing. Like, there's a few fan bases, the Cleveland Browns,
yeah.
for sure. But Detroit, prior to the Dan Campbell, Jared Goff era, they hadn't won a playoff game in over 30 years.
Yeah. That's crazy.
They went 0-16, first time in NFL history. Been a disaster. Never won a Super Bowl. Never been to a Super Bowl. Nothing. It's Detroit. Buffalo's close, but I think it's Detroit.
I think you're right.
All right, Jesse Palmer on that more in about a half an hour. We'll come back and catch up with Nick Taylor, his win in Hawaii. How does he keep doing it in the playoffs? 3 straight wins in a playoff. What is it about playoff golf that puts him in the zone? And how does this set him up for the rest of the season now that he's already in the winner's circle and we're only through a couple of weeks in January? So Nick Taylor, he will join us next. All right, TSN 1050 wants you to be our unofficial correspondent at the grittiest golf event of the year. And to enter, you got to download the iHeartRadio app, create an account, and listen to TSN 1050 for at least 15 minutes straight. Once you hit 15 minutes, follow the prompts to complete your entry, whether it's 15 minutes of First Up or 15 minutes of Overdrive. The more you listen, the better your chances. And next Monday, First Up will be calling one listener with a trip for 2 to the Waste Management Open in Arizona. Full details at tsn1050.ca. That is a tournament Nick Taylor will be looking to defend his championship at, because he, of course, won the Waste Management last year. And he's coming off a win this weekend at the Sony Open in Hawaii, and he's in Palm Springs playing in the Amex this weekend. Caught up with Nick Taylor earlier this afternoon. 5-time PGA champion. 5-time PGA champion. When we began by asking Nick, how's that sound, man? 5-time PGA champ.
Yeah, I'm running on the fingers on one hand. It's pretty cool to hear that. It's I think when I think about it, take a step back, it's pretty cool to have 5. That was certainly maybe not in my wildest dreams when I first got on the PGA Tour, but to kind of have a few in the last 3 years, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an incredible run, obviously, that you're on, and I'm sure the dust is still settling a little bit considering what happened on Sunday. But when that final putt goes in and you win, does it always feel the same, or as you get older and you get more wins, can you separate it in the moment winning a golf tournament?
No, I think the feeling of winning never changes. I think that's why I think all of us are out here working so hard as time goes on, because you know what that feeling is, and it never changes. It's always amazing. I've done it in a few different fashions, so that one was a little, I guess the putt to win was a little less dramatic than last couple, but the nerves are still there, and I think it almost felt like relief or almost a bit of surprise, I think, over what had happened over the last couple hours of that tournament. Missing a couple of short putts, thinking I was probably out of it, to chipping in for eagle, getting a playoff, and pulling off some shots again. So it's kind of a roller coaster ride those couple hours, but the feeling never changes of satisfaction of winning. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And you mentioned those putts on 14 and 15, and I was watching you play the back. I watched your approach on 14. You missed that putt, and you kind of pushed the putt, I guess. And I know it was windy a little bit. And then you hit that approach on 15, and I got to be honest with you, Nick, I flipped over to the football game because I'm like, all right, he's in. That's 15 under. He's in the hunt here. And I flipped back about 15 minutes later, and you're still at 14 under. I'm like, I can't believe he missed that putt. Mm-hmm. And then you go on, you chip in for eagle on 18, you end up winning the tournament. Now that you know the way the rest of the tournament played out, how do you look back on those missed putts on 14 and 15?
Yeah, actually, Dave and I talked a bit about it. It was still in the tournament, but it might have been after regulation, but it was, I think on my part, there was just a bit of indecision. I think there's so many factors with the wind blowing in Hawaii at times, with the grain on the greens, trying to figure out where you think it's actually the slope is, and then throwing the wind in there. And the first putt, I think I had an initial read, and then we added a bit more from what we saw from the other guys, and just probably didn't quite trust it and pushed that one a little bit. And then, I think I hit my line on the second putt, or the second short miss, just hit it way too hard, and I think that was probably a bit of indecision as well. So, those moments, typically I've been better with clarity and just trusting the line, and just wasn't able to do that in that situation, but was able to regroup, after that chip in and having the opportunity again for the playoffs, and was able to get back into that mode and hit a great putt on the first playoff hole. And, was certainly no gimme for the putt for the win, but it was nice that it was inside 3 feet.
Absolutely. We're chatting with Nick Taylor. And again, the putts on 14 and 15, it doesn't matter because you do what you do on 18, and, you get the relief and you end up chipping that ball in. And this is the amazing thing about your career and some of the things you've done over the last few years. Obviously, that putt at Oakdale, that I believe will be the defining moment of your career. I mean, let's see, if you win a major, obviously it's open to discussion in the future, but that putt is probably the most famous shot on Canadian soil, and I can't imagine anything will ever match it. Yet that chip in for eagle on 18, I mean, you keep adding to the best of and the greatest hits here, Nick, and I'm sure the plan was to make it. But how realistic is it in the moment when you're setting that shot up? Like, how are you reading a putt of that substance? I mean, it was a significant one, and you probably knew at the time you got to hit it in order to have a chance to win it.
Yeah, we knew that 16 was going to be the minimum, and we knew that because Nico I was playing with just hit his bunker shot to essentially gimme range to get to 16 under. And Dave did such a great job of, we're reading the putt, but, just emphasizing to me okay, where are you trying to land this? Where's your spot? Where do you see this going? And just gets you in that mode of, all I'm trying to do is make this chip. And I think at times you can get complacent throughout a golf tournament of maybe not trying to hole a chip, trying to get it close. And when you're in kind of that mindset, it's just going to help with that little much more. There's obviously no guarantee that it's going to go in, but it got me in that mind of, this is where I'm trying to land it. This is where I see the break going. And luckily I executed it correctly, and we guessed correctly on the break as well. So, everything kind of came together there, but Dave definitely helped me set it up and get in that mindset of this is all we're trying to do.
Yeah, it was just an incredible chip. And then you get up and down in the playoff twice, effectively from the same spot. The first one, the wind kind of just got it and it flew by. You hit an amazing putt to push the playoff to a second hole. And then, in the second playoff hole, you basically chip one into 2.5 feet, which ends up setting you up to win the tournament. But that was your third straight win in a playoff, and all of them have been incredible. Again, Tommy Fleetwood at the RBC, Charlie Hoffman at Waste Management, and then Echeverria on Sunday. Like, what is it about your mindset in a playoff that allows you to play so comfortably and play so well? Because you're way under par, over the last 3 years when it comes to these playoffs. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to emulate a lot of that into the first round of golf tournaments, the second round of golf tournaments, because it's, I think those moments, there's certainly nerves. I know the situation, the pressure's there, but there's a sense of clarity on the shots I'm trying to hit. The doubt of what could go wrong kind of dissolves for whatever reason, where, I think you'd think the opposite could happen more easily, where for me, it just kind of, you see the shot, I have trust in my ability. And again, not that I haven't hit poor shots in those playoffs, but I kind of see the lines pretty well in the playoffs. I trust it better than like I did. Like I said, when I missed those 2 short ones, there was some indecision in that. That seems to wash away. And I just try to set myself to hit the best shot possible. And luckily it's fallen my way in those moments.
Yeah, it sure has. And I'm curious if your amateur golf career put you in a position like this, because you won the Canadian Boys Junior Champ, you won the Canadian Amateur when it was still a match play. At one point, you were the number 1 amateur player in the world. You said right afterwards to the telecast, after you won the Sony Open, that you've always, kind of appreciated match play, loved match play, and with Tommy Fleetwood, with Charlie Hoffman, with Nico on Sunday, like, do you think it would be a little bit different if there were 3 or 4 other guys in the playoff? Like, does it help you in terms of a mentality where you can think, okay, this is match play if it's just you versus one other player?
Yeah, certainly. I think when we finished, I bet you could ask Nico the same thing. I think we felt fortunate that we were actually even in a playoff, because when we had finished, Steven and JJ, I think we're at 16. So with the birdieable 18th, we're just hoping to get in the playoff, and then for having to play out and for it just to be us two, a lot of thoughts going through your mind. But, even if you lose solo second's a heck of a lot better than a three-way tie for second, or, obviously a lot of thoughts go through your mind, but just playing a one-on-one, like I said, gets me kind of in that match play mode, and I've always enjoyed those moments. So I think that was something that, it was a bit of a break for it just to be us two, but it got me in a good mental state for that as well.
How does this set up your season, Nick? Like, it's effectively the second tournament of the year. You've been in Hawaii for a couple of weeks. You're in the Amex this week. You're going to go back to Pebble soon, where you're a former champion yourself. You're going back to Waste Management, where you're a winner. Like, it's well in advance of the players and the four majors. How does winning early in the year maybe set you up for what you hope to do the rest of the year? Yeah,
it opens up the schedule. I was in the first two signature events through the West Coast swing, and after that there was tournaments that I wasn't guaranteed to be in, majors included. So this certainly opens that up. I'll be in all the signature events for the rest of the season, Masters, PGA for sure, and hopefully the other two majors as well. So, last year I've tried to kind of take and learn from that. Didn't have any success in the majors, and, I don't want to overemphasize and really step on the ground those weeks and try to play great, but just try to get a little bit better, learn from last year, just try to be in a slightly better mental space and not try to do too much, and see what I can do in the majors, and kind of go from there. But it definitely opens up the schedule and gives me a lot of great momentum to start the year.
Absolutely. And like you said, you don't want to put the cart before the horse and start thinking about tournaments in April and May, et cetera. You got a bunch of big tournaments coming up. But in terms of what you've proven to yourself and the golf world for that matter, that if you're in contention on Sunday, you're likely either going to close or you're certainly going to be in it. And like I look at the Waste Management last year, you look at the way you closed. The year before, you're in a final grouping with Scheffler and Rahm, and kind of Rahm kind of faded, and you and Scheffler were going back and forth all the way up through 16, 17, 18. Scheffler ends up getting you in the end, but you stayed on him. Do you feel like you have that mentality where if you're in contention on a Sunday at a major, you can close it and you're just waiting to get that opportunity?
Yeah, it's the last few years certainly has given me confidence when I get in those situations. There's never a guarantee that it's going to pull off that way, but the more times I do this, stack on, successes on top of each other, when I get in those moments, I have those to kind of lean back on. But yeah, there's a long road in majors, particularly that I haven't really experienced those. And major pressure is definitely a level up from a regular tour event. But again, I can lean back on those things, and the goal is to kind of get comfortable, play my game, not try to do anything too special. And I think the more times that I get in these situations, you realize that, certainly I didn't play perfect golf last week. I'm sure I had a few breaks go my way that might not happen this week or future, but you don't have to play perfect golf to compete or certainly win. So the more times you do that and realize that you're just in a better mental state to kind of start the week and just let things play out instead of forcing things.
Well, it was an amazing scene all week. It really was, and it was just an awesome Sunday to see you, stay in the hunt and then do what you did, down the stretch and into 18, and then those playoff holes were just remarkable. And can't thank you enough for doing this. I know you're busy, and I know a lot of people are pulling on you right now, and you're getting ready for another tournament at the MX. So we appreciate you doing this today. Congrats, Nick, and good luck this week. And we'll do it. We'll do it again down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian.
There he is, Nick Taylor. My partner, my buddy.
I noticed he called you Bry.
That's right, man. We played the Pro-Am at St. George's. I set him into a completely different stratosphere. The way he plays, the way he operates, awesome guy. And I'll never forget seeing him, like when we were at Oakdale, which obviously went on to win that tournament. I saw him on the Thursday. He didn't play well the first round. I think he shot over par. I want to say he shot like a 74 or something. And I saw him in the hospitality tent after the round, and he was just, pretty nonchalant, like pretty still, like was collecting his thoughts, I think, on everything, and just thought, I didn't have it today. But at no point did I leave that conversation thinking this guy's going to win the RBC Canadian Open 3 days later. I was kind of like, hey, man,
tough luck.
Try to make the cut. It was kind of like my viewpoint. Like
taking pity on him?
Yeah, like, good luck tomorrow. Try to make the cut. But I don't know, man. I don't see it. And then he went, like, lights out the rest of the tournament. Ends up winning it. Obviously the most famous putt in Canadian history. And now he's the man. And now he's the permanent logo of the RBC Canadian Open. Him launching the putter in the air.
Wow.
That's the logo, man. You can't beat that. I love that. Love that decision by RBC, the Canadian Open, Golf Canada, everyone. So, yeah, we'll see what he's got in store. A lot of Canadians in action this weekend out in Palm Springs. So thanks again to Nick Taylor. Appreciate that. Jesse Palmer coming up. Pierre LeBrun, two good Canadian boys as well. Get into some NFL and some Leaf talk and other NHL talk as we go into a busy night in the NHL. Final hour coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.